Very good. Welcome to the show. And of course, as I told you, this morning we're having a conversation on climate change. And remember, COP26 was held in the city of Glasgow in November last year. That's about 3 months ago. There was no much commitment that came out from the world leaders, because actually climate funding is still a big challenge, with about $100 billion in shortfall in terms of funding. But what do we need to do? Because Africa is bearing the brunt of climate change. This morning, we're joined by Mwenda Mithika. He's the Executive Director at Pan-African Climate Justice Action. He's going to help us understand what actually do we need to do, not only as a country, but as a continent and the world at large, to stop the serious marching of climate change and the impact it is having not only on our economic growth, but on many facets of our country. Thank you very much indeed, Mithika.
Thank you very much.
First of all, I want to hear your thoughts. You happen to be in Glasgow. I know you're rubbing shoulders with the high and mighty.
Yes.
Did you leave Glasgow feeling that we achieved what we went to Glasgow to do?
Well, we have conducted a lot of analysis on the outcomes of Glasgow. And truly, for Africa and Kenya in particular, we didn't really achieve what we expected in terms of outcomes, because we were very ambitious. We wanted adaptation funding, agricultural funding, for instance, for our agriculture, and so forth. So there are so many gains which we expected. The aspirations for Africa, our priorities, were not achieved. And so it is still a fight at global geopolitical spaces.
Yes. I mean, you see, the whole point is that we were supposed to go and have a debate on what we have missed, what we need to do, how much we need to inject into the global economy, and and whether we are meeting our green gas emission targets. But that actually never came out strongly. Why do you think there was so much sizzle, but not much stake?
Yeah, for us in Africa, and for us in Kenya in particular, we don't take climate change very seriously the way the Western countries take it. Climate change right now is actually one of the topical issues in the world. It shapes economies, it shapes politics, and it shapes all aspects of life. And so, when we were going there, a US delegation, European delegation, Australian delegation, the British delegation, they are looking at climate change as something very serious, which actually affect their economies, affect their job creation, affects their agriculture, affects their energy, the way they use their energy, the way they farm, and everything. And so, for us in Africa, we look at it in very narrow perspective. In fact, even the policies which we have are shaped by the North, and that's the challenge which we have. We may be having a lot of policies here, but look at their background, who has shaped those policies. And that is the biggest challenge we have. We look at climate change in a very abstract manner. For us, it is very far. But we need to create awareness for our people so that we understand, what does it mean to a tea farmer? What does it mean to a coffee farmer? What does it mean to that northeastern camel owner who is losing their camels every time? The livestock, the Maasai's livestock, even our own life. So that is where it is. We have not reached that level, and that's awareness is what we need, but based on the African context.
Very well. You see, the discussion around, the climate change is a very high-level kind of a discussion. And it is high time that we bring it down to the ordinary person to make people understand how exactly they are contributing to climate change, how to come up with the solutions, and how it is affecting them. Probably, maybe you can take a few minutes.
It is actually, that's what we are doing at Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, alongside our national platform, like Kenya Platform for Climate Governance, and the member organizations they are with. The problem is, yes, it is actually the discourse is at international level. The nearest it comes, particularly at Kenyan level, is at national level. We have workshops, we have workshops, we have everything, but now do very, very good policies. The National Climate Response Strategy, the National Green Economy Strategy. We have the best law in Kenya on climate change, the Climate Change Act 2016, and many others. But when we ask ourselves, how do we implement this?
Yes.
Then you realize that actually our work is always doing policies after policies without implementation. We have realized that even with the law which we have not even made any achievement. The problem is that the process is the top-down kind of model which we have been implementing our policies, and I may not agree with the Kenya Kwanza Alliance or the UDA or what what they are propagating. They are propagating the bottom up. I think we have a problem of this policy implementation, and even the way we share even resources in every aspect of our operations as a country, and even at global level, that everything is top down. So what we are promoting, and I'm not vouching for UNDA or anything, is that bottom up. But for us, we are calling it from below, so that we differentiate ourselves from the politics of the country. That any solution of any problem, including climate change, COVID-19 and those others, is going to be provided by the people from the community, the people at the front line of these problems, particularly the people at the front line of climate change. The smallholder farmer, the maize farmer, who is suffering and even at the forefront of those impacts which we are seeing there. I come from a farming community. I know that impact. My mother planted maize last season, and by the time it was sprouting, it dried up because the rainfall disappeared. The camel people, you see how many they have lost. But will they identify that as an impact manifestation of climate change, or they will just look at it as an act of God? You see? So these are some of the things which, look at the people who live in Mount Kenya. I was reading the other day the report from WMO. They were saying, actually the African report was saying in 30 years, actually in 10 years, by 2030, we are facing a threat of the vanishing snow in Mount Kenya. And you know what that means? Where do we get our energy, our hydropower? Is from the Seven Fork dams. Where they can get water is from Abandea's Mount Kenya. So the implication of that is that now...
And also that is where Nairobi actually gets a lot of its water from. Of course,
water from not only Nairobi, industrial area. Where do they get the energy to power the industries in industrial area? So you can see that link. The disappearance of the snow in Mount Kenya has impact on our rivers, which drive our energy, and the energy which drive our industry. And then where will they get energy? PPPs. You see, the private power purchasers, and you know that is the problem, because they are very expensive and sometimes it is very erratic. So now those are lost jobs, lost productivity, and the problem which we have is that we are not able to connect all this. What this climate, you see, it is the changing climate, the changing weather. There is no rainfall, there is no snow, and then you see the impact of it even into our pocket or in our plate.
Yes. But you see, the question that Africa has been asking itself is, in terms of contributing to, the green gas emission.
Yes.
I mean, the amount that Africa contributes is negligible, actually. But at the end of the day, Africa is bearing the brunt of green gas emission. So what exactly do we need to do?
Yeah.
That was a question that was actually coming out of Glasgow.
And that is actually a question of justice, which we have been vouching. You cause the problem. The industrialized countries pump these greenhouse gases into the atmosphere in their process of development, and these are the impacts. They are not facing the impact as we are facing. They may be facing, but they have capacity to absorb and mitigate and adapt. But what about this farmer at a very local level? So that is what we are saying, and it is the question that you have caused the problem. You have the responsibility to fix it. In the UNFCCC, the Climate Change Convention, all that is outlined what those people who have caused this problem, called industrialized countries, have to do. provide the money for these people, for those farmers at my village to adapt to the impacts of climate change.
But they are not doing that.
The pastoralists to adapt to climate change. And even at our urban areas, erratic rainfall and floods, so that we can reconstruct our lives.
But how do we force the green emitter, I mean the green gas emitters, to contribute? Because even as we speak now, the world, we have a shortage about $100 billion in terms of green funding. Yeah,
we have, of course, we have that, but it is in paper. Those farmers at local level, have they seen that money? Does it come? How much comes in Kenya? I was in discussion with my fellow civil society colleagues yesterday, Wangari Maathai Foundation and those others. We are trying to see how do we track that money. Does it come, or where does it go? Even if it comes, do we have systems to have that money? But truly, it is debatable whether that money is given or not, because you go to the books, they say yes, we have contributed that money per every year. We contribute. The OECD, Organization for Economic Development, they say they are producing, but there is no money. So what we are doing in this, like in Glasgow, we were asking them, where is the money which you tell us about? So what they do, they are very tricky. They have twisted the books, they have twisted the policies in such a way that they are saying we have done, but it goes, if it's an adaptation initiative they are doing or mitigation, they fund big energy projects in Kenya, like the Lake Turkana wind energy power project, like this mega energy project, is about their investment, is not about our adaptation. The most important thing, and that's what we are going to fight in, and we continue to fight in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh, in the COP27, which is, we are calling the Africa People's COP. It's not African COP, it's African peoples, because we want to drive this COP, because that's where the decision, and what we are driving there is, you have caused the problem, you have caused the loss and losses and damages into our economies, like you have let our camels to die, our women and girls are suffering because of carrying water. So we want you to compensating them is loss and damage. And the adaptation finance, those are some of the things. We want the finance in agriculture. Where is that money coming from? Look at the statistics. Agriculture accounts for 33% of Kenya's economy. 40% of the people employed are employed from the agricultural sector. Yet it is the sector which is facing the biggest threat of this climate. What are we going to do? We have to diversify. We have to change. We were relying on rain-fed agriculture. We need to rely on irrigation. But do we have that money really to establish irrigation in my village?
I'll be coming back to that, because the conversation now around agriculture is about the adoption or adaptation of a smart agriculture. But before we get there, I mean, look, for example, the G7, or the group of 7 richest countries in the world, when you look at their combined military budget or military spending, annually, it's more than $1 trillion. But when you look at their contribution, towards green projects in the world, it's less than $200 billion. Are they really serious about tackling the issues of climate change?
Actually, these are not the challenges we have as activists. At international level, we fought for the Green Climate Fund, for instance, because this is undemocratic and accessible, the way we believe, fund. It has been starved of money. Mzungu is happy channeling the money through their own channels, World Bank, which they control, and the International Bank of Reconstruction and Development, rather than putting it where we can control. These are the challenges of geopolitical competition. They will never let us to have control of what we have, and these are some of the things which we are fighting right now, trying to see where do we take our issues, where are our priorities, and do we have that political clout? You know that...
and the answer is absolutely no, we don't have any clout.
It is, but we have. Africa is constituted of 53 countries. We need to unite.
With a population of about 1.2
billion. You know that during the African Union meeting just last week, President Kenyatta was elected as the chair of the Committee of Heads of States and Governments on Climate Change. I believe that he used his vigor to rally together the Africans so that we can have a stronger voice when we go to Sharm el-Sheikh, because it is out of that voice that we are going to push this obstinate government so that they can put more money into Green Climate Fund and funding agriculture at local level, because that is where we need to go.
But let me even ask you this. I mean, look, what do you think, or how much do you think Africa, can achieve, even the AU can achieve when they face, the likes of the biggest emitters of greenhouse? We are talking about China, we are talking about the United States. Do you think they can have any clout by all means?
Well, and it is actually, I said again, the climate change has emerged as one of the topical issues of geopolitical interactions because of its importance. It's about the economies of countries. It's about the politics of countries. It's about social status of individual countries. And so, when they go to negotiate, it becomes very hard. So that's why we cannot negotiate as a country like Kenya, because we have very little clout at international level. But when we amalgamate ourselves into one voice, the African voice, which we are pushing, and now under the hands of President Kenyatta, when we are going to Glasgow, to Sharm el-Sheikh, then it is going to be, we can have a voice. We have held it, and we had some wins here and there. So we need to be very hard, and we need to be very determined, and we need to be very forceful.
You're talking about, the African Union with about 52 countries,
yes,
52 leaders,
yes,
1.2 billion people.
Yes.
How do we come up with a common agenda on green gas emission that we are going to take to Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt in November?
We have already, the conversations have started. We are working with the African group of negotiators, the technical people selected by countries, representing countries in this group. They negotiate as a single unit. Our heads of states under the CAUSC, the Committee of Heads of States and Governments, believe that we need to work together in one single voice, and Kenyatta is the one who is doing that.
President Kenyatta.
We also have the Africa Ministerial Conference on the Environment. So we have several actors, and we believe that we need to drive this agenda together under the auspices of the African Union. Yes.
Look, during the Glasgow meeting, 65 countries agreed to phase out coal power. Unfortunately, the biggest coal power generator in the world, that is China, was not party to this. Do you think this is akin to winking in the dark?
Well, it's debatable. And that's a question of what we are calling just transition, because many countries asking, you industrialized countries, you are telling us to abandon coal, and we are at the apex of our development, yet it is easy for you because you have the technology, and you have resources, so it is easy for you.
And these rich countries, they used coal during the third industrial revolution.
Yes. So now, those are now the difficult questions of this transition. And it is very difficult because they are saying, like you heard what Museveni was saying, when he was signing the oil and gas agreement with the Shell in the Albertine. And they were saying, well, it was not good for us as the civil society, because we are pushing for that phase out, keep oil on the ground, and coal on the whole. Why? Because we believe that that is not the future. Let me tell you, even if we continue burning this oil, we continue exploring, I think I don't see the future of oil and the coal. The technology have been developed of renewables, wind power, geothermal, the hydropower, and the so forth, and solar. And so, in future, it is not going to be even profitable, even to invest in coal. So that is the reality. President Trump, when he came in, became the president, because Obama and the Democratic Party and actually made it clear that they are going to phase out all the coal and the fossil fuel and the oil and everything. So what happened? Trump was saying, no, you are killing our jobs and what have you. I'm going to revive coal and ensure that I make it at the center of our energy production. But he left when he was defeated, and we were very happy because he's a climate denier. When he was defeated, he left without having established even a single coal power. Why? There is no appetite by investors, even in coal, because it doesn't make any business case. So that is what is going to happen. So what we are urging our policy makers, our political leaders, is let us look into the future. There is no future of oil. There is no future so let us invest in renewables. That is the future. While we save the planet and humanity, we also make business out of the new reality of investment and technology.
For example, I mean, look at Kenya, for example, we are generating almost 80% of our energy, from renewable sources, and this is geothermal and hydropower. But Kenya, in the nexus of things, is just is a small player in the world. How do we encourage, the big players, to embrace renewable energy, to embrace clean energy going forward?
I think some of these things come naturally, as I've said, because you are not going to be compelled to use wind power, because it is cheaper, it is becoming cheaper, solar is becoming cheaper. So it is actually the market which will determine that. So we are going to naturally abandon coal because renewables are becoming cheaper. There is, even in the US and those others, I think for them, it's not even about climate change. It's about now investment, and that is where the world is going. So the big powers actually are in this full time. Go to Norway right now. The cars in the roads of Norway right now are 67% are electric. Can you see that shift? So in the next 10 years, I can bet most cars in our roads.
But Norway has a population of less than 10 million.
No, I'm just giving you the direction where the world is going, whether it is a small population, but I'm just giving you a signal of where the world is going. So we are transitioning naturally without even struggling, because we have reached that level of the green revolution. It is inevitable. So for us, whether we want it or not, the world will shift us. In any case, what does Africa control?
The fact of the matter is that, the world is making progress in terms of, reducing green gas emission. The question is, are we making progress? Are we making this progress at the desired rate? Because the more we dilly-dally, the more the situation becomes complicated.
This is the challenge which we have, and what we as activists are calling the global community to do. We need rapid transformation. We need to shift in a very dramatic manner. Science is not on our side. Climate justice is not our side. We need to transition, and this means in the industrialized countries, even if we turn the whole of Africa green, without action being taken by industrialized countries. That is America, that is China, for instance, now is the biggest emitter, that is other. If we don't take that action, then we are continuing to exacerbate the problem of climate change.
Do you see the world reaching the much dreaded 2.4 Celsius degrees Celsius?
We are talking about 1.5. I think we are delayed, we are behind science. And the pressure is coming from us, the people. I'm very happy that the young people have embraced this. All the campaign led by young people. We are in massive mobilization of young people in schools, in colleges, and elsewhere. We need really to ensure that that is done, and they have to take drastic emission cuts.
Very good.
Through this solidarity action between us in the south and our allies in the north, so that now US accepts to cut their emissions at dramatic levels.
We are here in the studio. We're having a very hot conversation here on why the world is becoming hotter. This conversation, we're having it with Dr. Mithika Mwenda. He's the Executive Director of Pan-African Action Justice. Let me get it right. Pan-African Climate Justice Action. Yes, you are. And the conversation we are having here is on climate change, what we need to do as a country, as Africa, and as the whole world. Thank you very much. And let's come back to the conversation that we are having here. Look, we were talking about, clean energy, and Kenya has set a target of the year 2025, to transition to clean energy. Yeah. How do we ensure, or how do we force other countries, not just force, but how do we make other countries in the world, to see the importance, of transitioning from dirty energy to clean energy?
I think first and foremost is to create the incentives for renewables, the way it is happening at international level. We have seen that the price, for instance, of renewables has dramatically come down over the past 10 years, and they incentivize the fossil fuel, that is coal, oil, because there is a lot of money in subsidies which are given to this sector, and then revert that, turn that to renewables so that they become as cheap as possible. Then investment in all this technology is very important, and that is where we see actually the gains for us. As we address climate change, we make business sense out of it. We encourage the private sector to be part of the solution, rather than the enemies, the way we have been looking for. And that is what we are doing in our organization. We have realized that at global level, the private sector is a critical player in this all discourse on climate crisis. But when we come to our countries, Africa, I think we are really lagging behind, and that is what we need to do so that we are not going to be left behind by this ensuing revolution.
And you have rightly put it. I mean, when you look at the issues of climate change conversation, the private sector is somehow lagging behind, and for some strange reason. I mean, they are some of the most affected, when the climate change is impacting the global economy. So how do we make the private sector to be part and parcel of this critical conversation or dialogue, on a daily basis?
There are two ways to make them. First and foremost, you make them embrace the conversation and show them the opportunities therein in addressing climate change as a threat to their businesses. As I've outlined, what happens when it dries and there are no rivers, then there is, if it affected the whole value chain of production in our industrial area, where it's dominated by companies and industries. So really we have to create that link, and we need to have conversation. And secondly is to invest in innovation, ensure that these businesses are promoted, and they are shown that you make business out of it. So when somebody realizes that, though it is a threat, because we do business to make profit, then they are going to embrace it. And that is what is happening in the north. Look at all these wind power projects, like the Turkana wind power project. It's an investment of the Dutch company. So for them, they saw an opportunity to establish a wind power farm, and they are making money out of it with the KPLC, though it's of course very controversial still, and many others. And so there is massive opportunities in climate change and climate action, and that is actually the debate. We have changed the debate of a challenge into an opportunity. We provide our solutions while we are gaining out of it.
Climate change is costing the Kenyan economy about 2.3% economic growth every year. How significant is this, to a layman?
Well, and that's why I'm saying now we are promoting the bottom up, the from below kind of conversation.
This is not the bottom line. Concept being
not the bottom up we are talking about.
Of politicians.
Yes, a section of politicians. But of course, it makes sense that without creating people's ownership of these conversations, assuming that these people do not have that solution, then we are not going to go far. It is going to be just a cosmetic conversation, the way it has been, and we want to change the narrative altogether. We want to tell that smallholder farmer from my village that your tea yield has reduced because it has dried up, and these are the things you are seeing. These are the impacts of climate change. We want to tell the fisher folk in Lake Victoria that the yields from your rivers and lakes have reduced because this is the impacts of climate change. We want to tell people in Mount Kenya that the rivers have dried up because these are the manifestations of climate change. We tell the coast people that all the changes you are seeing in weather are changing. The sea level rise is because of climate change. So, and they identify with it because they are within that environment. They are the stewards of the nature which we are living on. But we have removed them from the conversations. We have made the elitists, even at both civil society and even government level. We do it in Nairobi and we end it there. So we need really to trickle it down, make it be driven by the people, and that is what we are promoting as locally led climate action. You remember late last year, the World Bank signed a 150 billion Kenya shilling project called Financing Locally Led Climate Action. We hope that money will be driven by those communities, the CBOs at my level, so that they build their resilience to climate change. There is a lot of motivation. There is a lot of incentives to work at the local level. But now, with the structures which we have established, we hope that this is going to be realized, and we are going to break the barriers which are always there and obstacles, so that this money reaches the people at the local level who need it.
How do we convince, the people in the villages that climate change is real?
Well, of course, first of all, it is not dry advocacy. We need to work with them. We need to, build that solidarity. We need to go and we have a project, for instance, in Meru called To Jinwe. To Jinwe is let us lift ourselves from the ravages of climate and COVID-19. So what we did, we mobilized these farmers, and we have been working with them and looking at climate resilient and drought resistant crops like sunflower and the sorghum now, and honey, which actually can withstand the harsh climatic conditions. And you know what? They have started embracing that. So what I'm saying, rather than that calling people and going to talk with them, just dry advocacy, we use evidence-based advocacy. Based on that we share that with policymakers and tell people, can you see? Now, you cannot grow maize. There is alternative crops which we can grow, which can withstand this kind of weather. And they are embraced. We have more than 1,000 farmers. And
this is like sorghum.
Millet, sunflower, and
cassava.
It is cassava, and it is working. So there is will for those people. We need really to identify with them, identify with their resources, identify with their realities, identify with their context. But don't go to coast and tell coastal people to grow cassava, whereas they grow fish. And so these are some of the things which we know. We need to be very, very practical in whatever we do.
What about the political class? Look, for example, Kenya will be going to the poll in about how many months from now?
Less than 6 months.
Less than 6 months. We are here to hear, our politicians, bringing the conversation around climate change, to the fore. Is our political class, really concerned about, climate change?
That is the challenge we have in African countries. I have interacted with colleagues from the Denmark, even in the United States, and even elsewhere in Europe. Climate change is such a topical issue that it is driving politics. It has become an election issue. The current government, Danish government in Denmark, is elected on the mandate of climate change. In Netherlands, and even in the US, the climate change movement played a very important role in the defeat of President Trump because he had denied climate change. But in Africa, we have not reached that level. Right now, climate change, because everybody is being affected, should be driving the campaigns which you are seeing. But we are talking about it. Nothing. So we are not, our politics are different because we are not issue driven. We are driven by ethnic, alliances and those other petty issues which do not matter in the livelihoods of that people.
Who is going to instill in the minds of our politicians the urgency to bring the conversations around climate change?
Though we have a long way to go, people like us who are convert, we want to really build that movement. And in future, the green movement will be shaping the future of this nation, I can assure you.
Which future is this?
In 10 years to come, you'll see. This could not be...
Why must we wait for that long?
It is because the kind of people which we have. They will not listen to that. Those are not issues. In fact, they are not issues. We can have the best manifesto, but it just remains in paper. We want people who are committed to what they stand for. And even now, we need to be hearing about your presidential candidate. What are you going to do on climate change?
You see, last year, President Uhuru Kenyatta declared, the ongoing drought a national emergency in this country.
Yeah.
How is that related to the climate change that the world is going through?
Drought is climate. Drought actually is the manifestation of climate change. But that is how narrow we are in trying to, to embrace some of these conversations. We are the leader in these conversations, but we fail really to embrace it and integrate it into our actions and conversations. That is the problem which we have, and it is a difficult conversation, but I believe that we are going to reach there one time.
One time?
Yeah.
You see, scientists are warning that if deliberate and more aggressive actions are not taken, towards the curbing of green gas emission, Africa is likely to become uninhabitable in the next 50 years.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
I'm not sure that we are going to be here in the next 50 years.
We may not, but
So for those who will be here, who are likely to be here, how is that likely to happen?
Well, it is going to be a very difficult environment, and that's why the young people are leading this movement, because the generation which was there and the one which exists have completely denied science, they have ignored science, and they have messed up their future. So in the mobilization which we have is we have killed our past and present. So can we secure the future of the young generation and the generations to come? That's why I'm telling you, in the North, it's no joke. They have embraced it, and they have really put pressure on policymakers, and climate is a serious issue.
But we can't say the same of Africa. I mean, look at, for example, young people in Africa, is a very young continent, demographically speaking. But when you listen to young people, the conversations around, climate change is not very, very much prevalent. What we talk about is education, is good health, is jobs. How do we elevate that conversation among young people?
I think we have strategies. For instance, we have established what we are calling the Nairobi Summer School on Climate Justice. We are working with Kenyatta University and alongside other African universities. We end a very, very interesting school at Kenyatta University in last year, where we brought together around 800 participants from across Africa and globally. And you can see now out of that, the conversation continues, and it is mobilizing young people, and they're embracing this spirit. Us who are older enough have already lost it, I believe, and the future belongs to this. So we need really to nurture them. We need to support them so that they can speak on their behalf. Because we speak to them, but we don't do what we are supposed to do. So I would want to build that sizable cloud of young people so that they can be able to put pressure into our government to be able to drive this agenda.
How do we also make climate change issues an integral part of our education system?
I think that there's a plan for that already. I think we are, by all purposes, by all standards, I think Kenya, we are doing a little well than other African countries.
But this is not a question of what one country is doing. Is what are we doing, collectively?
It's, the climate change law, the Climate
Change Act.
Change Act 2016. I think has made it possible for climate change to be a multi-sectoral issue. I think I remember that even the Institute for Curriculum Development, among other, even in universities, are trying to integrate climate change as an examinable subject. And I'm sure, I think that is, those are very small steps, but very vital in that direction you are talking about. Yes.
Look, in November of this year, all the eyes of the world on, especially on conversations around climate change, will be in Egypt.
Yeah.
The beautiful resort city of Sharm el-Sheikh. As Africa, what message do we want to take to Sharm el-Sheikh?
So we were, and actually that's a very good point. We were in Glasgow. We had a position for Africa. First of all, recognition of Africa as a special needs and circumstances region, that we are vulnerable, and we cannot be compared with other regions. So in terms of mitigation and adaptation, but in terms also of climate change impacts on our sectors, which are driven by nature. So this one, we lost it even at the agenda stage. We want this to be reinstated when we go to Egypt. Two, the issue of adaptation finance. There is a lot of money flowing into mitigation because that is where companies from rich countries are making profit. Climate change is not an issue of profit. It is survival. And survival is about adaptation and resilience building. We want them to double or even triple adaptation finance and put it at the same level of mitigation. So that's the other one. The other point is loss and damage. The issue of loss and damage is that we have lost, as northeastern residents, we have lost our camels and livestock out of climate change. Maasais, we have lost our livestock out of climate change. Farmers have lost their crops out of climate change. They need compensation, and that is loss and damage. So we want also to focus on that alongside other very critical issues of participation in these negotiations.
Right. Do you think Africa is crafting a collective message that they are going to take to Sharm el-Sheikh?
Certainly. We're in conversations, both civil society and governments. The African group of negotiators now under the chair of Zambia, the CAUSC, Committee of Heads of States and Governments on Climate Change, led by President Kenyatta, the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment, led by South Africa, and the African Union, of course now, led by Senegal. So all those actors are working together to front a single African position, and I can assure you it will be African people's position, not the African position as we are using it. We want to own that process as citizens.
Even as we march towards in the November's meeting, how do we make the conversation in Sharm el-Sheikh here in Africa become more relevant to us as a continent?
Is articulating our issues, our narratives, what climate means to that farmer, to that pastoralist, to that fisher folk, and making them speak for themselves. So we are going to take most of them there so that these people can hear what this means to our farmers. Yes.
And how do we ensure that Sharm el-Sheikh COP27 doesn't become another center of what we call deodorized discourses?
Well, you know, this is global geopolitics. It's negotiations. We are going to try our best, but I can assure you, Africa is determined now.
It's determined?
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
I know you're going to be in Sharm el-Sheikh.
Yeah.
I'm also likely to be there, God willing.
Yes.
And what do you expect at the end of the day to come out of the COP27 in Egypt?
What I expect is a decision on adaptation finance, a decision on loss of damage, and then, of course, the aspirations for Africa, which are anchored on those, which actually are responsive to African realities and aspirations.
That is going to happen?
Yeah.
Very good.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Mwenda, thank you very much. Any other comments that you have to make before I let you?
Well, nothing, but I think we are in a situation where we have really even to appeal to our leaders. Really, my appeal is to the President Kenyatta. The hope of Africa is on your hands. And we assure us as African civil society, and I have the non-state actors that we are behind you, but don't let us down. I think it is very difficult, it's difficult negotiations, but of course it is led by a very determined person, a seasoned Pan-Africanist, and we hope we are going to see that Pan-Africanism once you are able to rally behind yourself, key leaders who are going to really support the African voice. I know that we are comparing President Kenyatta's chairmanship with the late Mele Zenawi when we were going to the Copenhagen in COP15. I think we saw that vigor. We have never seen the vigor like that one, but we hope that now with President Kenyatta at the helm, we are going to see the visibility of Africa and African issues well articulated during that period in November.
Very good. Mwenda, Mithika, thank you very much for finding time to be with us this morning, and of course for helping us articulate issues around climate change. Thank you for finding time to be with us, of course.
Thank you.
Well, our conversation has been around climate change. Listen, climate change is real. It's one of the biggest threats to our existence now. It is more important than elections and re-elections. We must find a solution, and young people must become part of this movement. And I end this conversation on climate change by quoting Archbishop Desmond Tutu Thalate, who just passed away last month. This is what he said, actually. 25 years ago, people could be excused for not knowing much or doing much about climate change. Today, we have no excuse. That marks the end of our conversation on climate change on this show right now. But coming up next, we are conversing around how to make women more proactive in STEM courses. That conversation is coming up right here, right now, after the break.